that they need this, and the judge is rubber stamping it. I mean, there's a lot of approval over the Patriot Act. It's just that it's not transparent towards the public, so you really don't know what's happening. And I mean, certainly anything like this, there's going to be certain excesses done by people. I mean, there's just inherent in sort of power situation. There's certain people who abuse the powers given to them. But is that really the fault of the act or just of certain individuals?
Well, I think one of the problems with the Patriot Act is so much of the language is very vague, and it lends itself very easily to abuse. So if the language lends itself to that, then that becomes a fault with the act itself and not just the people carrying it out.
But I think they purposefully write it to be vague so that it can be interpreted, because if you write it too specifically, it's going to, if you write it for one instance, that one instance may never ever occur again. So they have to write it in a vague sort of manner in order to allow for interpretation for separate events, because if they write one thing for a very specific event, it'll be wasted because it's probably never ever going to happen again.
But at the same time, when you look at words like relevance, which is a big issue in the Patriot Act, whenever you go before a judge, what constitutes relevance? It's so vague that you might as well not even have a judicial oversight provision, because it's so vague that you can justify relevance based on almost anything. So, how do you do that? And the fact that those proceedings are carried out in secret courts means that Americans or anyone indicted under the Patriot Act has no way to defend themselves.
I mean, the big thing, too, is back when they were renewing the bill in 2005, because it was about the sunset, Senator Feinstein, who I believe at the time was chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee, or sub-chair, she went and reviewed it, and she'd said that there were no known examples of serious abuses done by it, that there may have been some minor things, but as a whole it had been very effective and had not been abused seriously.
And that's coming from a very vehement Democrat, anti-Bush administration political figure.
But, then again, I mean, she can also use the vague language and everything of the act to kind of hide behind that. So...
How so?
Well, sorry, I have to ask one more question. Do you think there are less intrusive ways of fighting terrorism besides impinging on people's rights, as some of you have been saying?
Well, that's really hard, because to fight terrorism, you have to know things, and you have to find things out, and do research and stuff. So it's, there's always a really fine line between how far can you go before you're infringing on someone's, privacy, but if you're actually doing that and infringing upon their privacy and protecting, thousands, if not millions of people, what's the trade-off?
Yeah, I mean, you really have two major options, and it's militarily or through intelligence. And I think most people would rather us be doing it through an intelligence network rather than actually trying to physically attack with the military. And that's kind of gotten us into certain fiascos elsewhere. So.
And I think, possibly you could do like the Citizens Watch thing, where if someone knew somebody that they suspected, they could tip someone off. But I don't think that...
It'll turn into a witch hunt.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think something like that would be super effective, because it'll turn into the witch hunt, or the black carding of the communists and the film industry, and all those various things. And it's it's really hard to say.
So do you think it's necessary for the age we're in today?
Very possibly. There's some issues. I know we're running short on time, but there's some issues with it that I don't believe are constitutional, but the intent of it is very necessary.
All right, well, what's also necessary is watching Platform. We're going to take a quick break, but please join us after the messages. If you'd like to be on the show, or if you have any questions or suggestions, please give us a call at 213-743-2722. And you can also drop us an email at platform@trojanvision.com. You can also catch us streaming live on the web 24/7 at www.trojanvision.com. We're going to be discussing more about the Patriot Act coming up next after these messages.
That guy? Look.
Okay, girls, at 3 o'clock.
What is he looking at? They're looking at us. What do you think?
Oh, that's so obvious. Captain Obvious has scored again.
Oh, we want to say something. Oh, he's really gonna down.
Hi. Hi.
Hey, guys.
Hi.
global warming. Some say irreversible consequences are 30 years away. 30 years? That won't affect me.
Good evening and welcome back to Platforum. A federal appeals court prohibited a U.S.-based Islamic charity from using state secrets in a lawsuit obtained through wiretapping, even though the program is no longer considered a state secret. Now, this happened last week, so it's a very recent development on the Patriot Act, and I'd like to know, do you think that the government should be keeping secrets from its citizens?
That's always been a very touchy subject, and I think it actually doesn't really have a definite answer because, you know, with anyone, I mean, you know, anyone has the right to keep a secret from someone else because they're obviously going to have a reason for it. And I think the government, you know, in its own right, should have the ability to keep secrets from the population. But at the same time, I mean, you know, personally, I don't like people keeping secrets from me, let alone the government of, you know, big, crazy things that could be going on. So, you know, again, I don't think there's a definite answer for that.
I think the issue wasn't so much that the program itself was secret, but that a lot of the methods in which the program is implemented are still very much shrouded in secrecy because we can't let terrorists know how we're tracking them. So I think that any sort of exposure or anything that would make that bring transparency to that operation would be in question as a national security necessity.
Well, actually, I think the issue in this case that we're talking about that happened last week was that, you know, that they wanted to use its existence, you know, in the case against the NSA, saying that, look at what they're doing to us. They're, you know, using this eavesdropping program against us.
Right.
And the government is saying, well, you can't use that as part of your case because it's a state secret. But obviously it's not if they know about it.
But again, the existence of it isn't. But
right.
if it gets brought in as a part of the case, then that's something that forces transparency.
As in the information that gets brought in?
Right, and the means in which it's procured. So
Yeah.
I think they want to avoid that transparency being forced upon them.
If it's a classified operation, which the government is saying that this program is, and I think it's probably understood that it is, even people know about it, as long as it's classified, any information gained in it is also going to be classified. And so it makes little sense that you would let a court open this up to everyone and reveal government secrets that are vital to national security.
I think it's really dangerous territory when a government is keeping secrets from its people because it's supposed to be, you know, a democracy. I think there should be a level of transparency so that there's a level of accountability that comes along with that. And I think once you start to take that away, you're seriously running a risk.
Sometimes secrets are necessary, though. I mean, when we'd invented the atomic bomb, if we had made that public information for everyone, the Soviets would have had it at the same time we did instead of 4 years later. So, I mean, sometimes secrets are necessary in the name of national security.
I can definitely understand that, and I agree with that sometimes secrets are necessary. I'm not saying if they have a recipe for an atomic bomb that they should, you know, broadcast it and publish it, but I think this is something different. It's a secret that I'm, like, going behind your back and, you know, if I'm the government, going behind your back and listen.
You compromise your intelligence sources, though, when you reveal them. And that's the big name of the game in intelligence, is that you don't want people to know you're spying on them. And you don't want them to know how you're doing it. In a program like this, you let them know what you got and how you're doing it, and that you just killed your program.
Right. Well, I mean, I guess it makes sense that I agree with the program in the first place, so.
Well, who benefits from the exclusion of critical evidence, as they termed the existence of the NSA's wiretapping program?
The state and its prosecution and the people in their defense. Because
do you think we're benefiting as citizens?
I do, because I think that there are times where there is enough reasonable suspicion toward a person, not necessarily probable cause, but enough reason to suspect that that person might be involved in terrorism that you have to take action. At a given point, you don't have time to gather all the evidence that you would need for a court case. And as much as I don't like that, I do think that it is a necessity.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially with the technologies out there. I mean, yeah, it's nice for us to know what's going on, the technology that is existent out there, like, you know,